Hey guys, it's Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my 2017 recap, looking back on this past year and the things that have happened in it, as well as looking forward to 2018, some books I'm going to be reading and some things that I'm excited for in the upcoming year. Before we begin, I just want to give a shout out that the background's a little different because this Sandcastle Empire has a new place on my shelf. I just finished reading it and it was incredible, so it will now be in the background because it has an honorary place on my favorite shelf, and y'all should definitely read it and check out my review on Goodreads if you haven't seen it. My Goodreads link is down below in the description box if you want to check it out. I gave it 5 stars, and I'll be talking about it in my upcoming holiday readathon recap video, which will be up on January 20th after I finish my readathon on the 16th. So let's go on ahead and jump into the video of the recap of 2017 and looking forward to 2018. So in terms of looking back on 2017, I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite movies, books, milestones, and or events that occurred, things that really just stand out to me whenever I look back on 2017. I mentioned this before, there was quite a few discouraging things that happened, especially in my writing journey, but the good definitely outweighs the bad. I made so many new friendships and so many awesome things happened in terms of getting closer and closer to publication for What Lies Above. So I'm just going to be sharing some of those things in addition to some of my favorite movies and books that I read / watched during this year. So let's get started with my favorite books. And I cannot even remember what books I read at the beginning of the year. I'm just going to mention some of the standouts because, as I mentioned before, I used to read very infrequently. Before I started my holiday readathon on December 15th, I had only read, I think, like 4 or 5 books the whole year, and that even is pretty rare. That was pretty good. Then I started my holiday readathon and I read 3 books in 2 weeks because I was really pushing to read a lot. And whenever I started reading faster and more, I realized how much I missed it, how much I love reading, and how important it is as a writer to read. And I tell people that all the time, you need to read as a writer, but it's kind of one of those do as I say, don't do as I do things. And I started to realize that, like, I need to take my own advice and I need to read more. And a lot of it was because I was focusing so much on writing and revising What Lies Above, and I was really prioritizing that. So it was for a good reason, but still there is no excuse for not reading. So now I'm really prioritizing reading. And I started a Goodreads account so I can track how many books I read, and that's really motivated me because I love tracking my progress and seeing how many books I read, and I love hitting that I'm finished button and having it go in my read books. I love keeping track of that. So that's really good motivation, and I've started that. But before I started it, which I just started recently, I didn't keep track of what books I read. So it's very difficult for me to remember, but I'm going to mention some of the standouts, and then I'll mention my top 2 favorite books that I've read so far this year. Alright, so the first book that I remember reading for 2017, and I'm sure that there were some before that because I read this book in May, but I cannot remember any, so we're just going to start with this one, and that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which I buddy read with my good friend Amy from A Magical World of Words. And this was the first book, like I said, I remember reading for 2017. I definitely know that I read it in May, so we're going to count this one as the first book that I read for this year. Alright, and then after that, I'm pretty sure I started and finished another book, but I cannot remember, so I'm just going to skip ahead to June or July whenever I know that I bought and started reading the Defiance trilogy by C.J. Redwine. And that is Defiance is the first book. Then the second book is Deception, and then the third and final book is Deliverance, which was the first book that I read in my holiday readathon. These books were so good, and this series is definitely on my favorites. It's one of my, as you can tell, it's on my favorite shelf. It's on my favorite shelf on Goodreads as well, and I just absolutely loved this trilogy. Deliverance was definitely the best book. It's the third one, and it was such a good conclusion to the series. There was so much action and just amazing plot and twists, and the villains in this book are so good and fleshed out and incredible. And in the future, I'm going to do a video where I take some examples of books off my shelf and tell you guys a really good writerly craft related thing in the book that you can get an idea from, because I think that would be really cool. And villains are definitely something that I would use this series as an example for, because CJ does an awesome job with crafting her villains, and they were just such good reads. So these 3 books I read spread out. I started the first and finished the first 2 in July because I went to a writing conference and got them signed by CJ, and so that was just really awesome. But then I finished Deliverance as the first book for my holiday readathon, so it was kind of spread out, but I did finish the whole trilogy, which I'm super happy about, and I loved it. So that was another series that I read for 2017. And you can see, since I mentioned that I got this book signed, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later whenever I discuss events from 2017. I'll mention my conference that I went to, but she signed them. You can see right there it says, "To Caitlin, dare to do the right thing," and this is from Defiance, which is the first book. In the second book, Deception, she wrote, "Caitlin, face your fears." And then in Deliverance, the third book, she writes, "Caitlin, never lose hope." And again, this was my favorite book, and I feel like the inscriptions in the books that she signed, "Never lose hope," "Face your fears," go really, really well with the series, so that's really awesome. And overall, I loved them. I loved meeting her. I loved having them signed. They are on my favorite shelf. They have a very wonderful place next to the Hunger Games, and so this was definitely one of the best reads, and again I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I did read this series in 2017. Alrighty, throughout 2017 I had also been reading a book that I have tried to finish, and I was reading kind of pages at a time, but it took me a long time and I still did not finish it, and that was King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. I got about halfway through this book and then I did not finish it, and I'm not going to go into all the details of why I didn't finish it. It was for some personal reasons, but I ended up reading about halfway through this book, but I cannot even consider it as being fully finished, but I did read a good portion of it. I feel like I probably got 200 or more pages into the book, and then I ended up not finishing it. So I cannot count this as a finished book for 2017, but it was one that I read a good majority of for this year. Then I started my holiday readathon, and like I mentioned, I read Deliverance by CJ Redwine as the first book for my readathon. After I finished that book, I read The Evaporation of Sophie Snow by Mary Weber. And again, I'm going to go into more detail about all the books that I read over my readathon, including the books from the first 2 weeks of January, but for right now I'm just going to discuss the books that I read in December. So this was the second book of my readathon, and the 6th or so, 4th, 5th, I don't know, book that I read for this year that I can remember at least. Again, I'll go into the review and the stars that I gave and how I felt about each of the holiday readathon books in my upcoming holiday readathon recap, which will be on the 20th of January, so stay tuned for that. Alrighty, and then most recently I read The Sandcastle Empire by Kayla Olson, which was amazing, and again I'll go into all that detail in my recap, and I cannot wait to gush about it. I left a review today on Goodreads. You can go check that out on my account. I will always, as I usually do, link to my social media down below in the description box, and I have my Goodreads link down there. So if you want to go read my review for this before I post my recap, you can go do that. I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing, and I just finished this morning actually. So yeah, this was an awesome book and I loved it, and this is the most recent book that I've read. I'm planning to read one more book before the new year, so that will count as well. And right now I actually have a poll going on Twitter for which book that I will be reading next, and by the time you guys see this video it will already have been decided, and I'll probably have already started reading it. Right now Legend by Marie Lu is ahead, so we'll probably end up reading that book next, and then I have a whole bunch of books that I want to read at the beginning of this upcoming year, 2018, that I hope to get done before the end of my readathon. So now, my 2 favorite books that I read this year, again there was not very much to choose from. 2018 is going to be a much better reading year for me, I guarantee it. I'm going to make it a priority to read. I already have a ton of books that I want to read, which again I will talk about in a little bit as I discuss my upcoming most anticipated reads and releases of 2018. For now, the top 2 books that I read that I absolutely loved in 2017 were The Sandcastle Empire and Deliverance by CJ Redwine. These 2 books were so good. Both of them got 5 stars. They are so different. The Sandcastle Empire is a dystopian, kind of more sci-fi-ish book, and then Deliverance is very fantasy. The worlds are totally different, and I absolutely loved both of them for their own reasons. Again, the villains in this book are so awesome, but the world in the Sandcastle Empire is just so complex and different and fresh, and it takes place on an island, and I described it in my review as Lost meets Indiana Jones with a little bit of Hunger Games, and y'all know how much I like the Hunger Games, so that's pretty awesome. And really, I feel like it is probably my number 2 favorite book ever behind the Hunger Games series, which I kind of collectively call my number 1 favorite book. It was just so good. So together, these were my top 2 favorite reads of this year. It was definitely easy to choose because I did not read that many books. In 2018, it will probably be harder, but there's so many great books on my list that I'm looking forward to, so I'm sure that I will have lots of favorite books for next year. Now on to my favorite movie that I saw this year. I mentioned this in previous videos. We don't go to the theater that often because we live in a small town. They only show like about 3 movies at a time, but even if they showed more, or even if they were always movies we wanted to go see, I just personally don't have the time to go to the movies a lot. So we go pretty infrequently. Sometimes we rent movies and stuff like that. So I have seen a few films this year that I absolutely loved. I did a Q&A a little bit earlier in the year where I shared some of my top movies that I had seen. They have changed a little bit, but some movies that I saw this year were Hidden Figures, Lion, The Last Jedi. I saw the new Beauty and the Beast, the live action version. I saw The Fault in Our Stars for the first time, and I honestly cannot remember. So let me look and see what released this year. Oh, I saw the new Thor Ragnarok movie. I saw Wonder Woman. I unfortunately saw the new Mummy movie, which was not good. I'm sorry, but that was probably my least favorite movie ever, not only to mention from 2017, but I did see that movie. I saw The Mountain Between Us. I saw Allied. So yeah, those are a bunch of movies that I saw this year. Actually, now that I think about it, I saw more movies than I thought that I did. So of all of those movies, some that really stood out to me as favorites were Wonder Woman. I really, really liked that movie. The best movie I probably saw this year was The Last Jedi. I absolutely loved it. I know there's some people who either really don't like it, and then there's a lot of people who love it, but I'm one of those people who I absolutely loved it. I said several times in the theater, I went with my family and I kept saying, this movie is so good, in the movie as I was watching it. I said that over and over again. I just thought it was such a good movie, and the plot, just everything about it, the characters, I loved that movie. I loved Wonder Woman. I loved The Fault in Our Stars. I thought it was so good. I have not read the book, but that's something that I definitely want to do. I know I kind of did that in reverse order, but the movie was on television and we just stumbled upon it, and my brother and I watched it, and even he said it was really, really good, and he's not a big reader, so that was really awesome to kind of see him get into that movie as well. I loved that one, and then I absolutely loved, and I've seen it 2 or 3 times this year now, Hidden Figures. I thought it was such a good movie, so interesting. It's funny and witty, and the women in it are just so amazing and inspiring, and it's such an awesome story, and I love true stories, true to life on the film. I absolutely love those. And speaking of which, I also saw The Secret Life of Henrietta Lacks film with Oprah Winfrey in it, and that one was good. It wasn't one of my top ones, but I did see that movie as well. But again, Hidden Figures, Wonder Woman, The Last Jedi are probably my top 3 movies from this year. Alrighty, now moving into milestones and events that happened for this year. So I'll start with events, and the #1 event that stood out to me that I went to this year was the Tennessee Writing Workshop, which I have a whole vlog for that, and I will link to that down below if you want to go check that out. It shows some footage from the conference and different panels that I went to, and I talk a little bit about what happened there, my favorite moments, and just different things. So again, I'll link to that below if you want to go check it out. But a few highlights from the conference. I got my first page of What Lies Above anonymously critiqued by an agent panel, and they loved it. I got so much good feedback, and one of the agents simply said, please query me, and I got to go up and meet her afterwards, and that was really awesome. Just such an amazing memory that I will always hold on to. So cool. And that's probably my #1 event from this year that stood out to me in terms of whenever I think of 2017, that was just such a cool experience. It was the first conference I'd ever been to, but it definitely made me want to go to more, and I plan to go to more in the future because that was just such a good experience. I also got to meet some of my internet friends in real life. I met Victoria Griffin, and I met some people who followed me that came up and they said, oh, I know you from, you know, typically it would be like Twitter, and that was just so cool to meet people in real life. But looking back on it, I feel like if I wouldn't have gone to the conference, I definitely would not have probably rewritten What Lies Above. I wouldn't have added a second narrator, and I wouldn't have had Eli's perspective, which I think adds so much depth to the story, and I edited so much of it and pretty much rewrote it. The example that I use, it's kind of like shattering glass and then trying to mosaic all the pieces back together, but the resulting mosaic is just so beautiful, and I'm so proud of it, and I feel like it's at that place now where I'm ready to query it for this last time and see what happens. So yes, I attribute so much to that conference, and it was definitely hands down the best event I attended in 2017. That then kind of pushes over into writing milestones for this year. I kind of just mentioned rewriting What Lies Above was the biggest milestone that probably occurred this year. Also having that agent ask me to query her was pretty awesome. I got a full request from another agent. I actually got several full requests this year in different stages of querying. Most of them didn't work out, but one is still on the table. She is waiting for me to send her the full once all of my betas finish, which most of them are finished. And again, I'll be looking over all of their feedback starting pretty soon in a few days and evaluating that into January, late January, and early February. So that's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. That is another huge milestone that I reached for What Lies Above. I had never had CPs or betas for any of my books before, and I found both of my wonderful CPs. I found my CP Jessie actually at the Tennessee Writing Conference. I got to meet her, and we were not CPs. We were not even friends before we went. I did not know who she was. She was just sitting next to me at the conference in one of the panels. We started talking and became friends, and afterwards we became CPs. I also met my lovely CP Abigail this year, and I made friends with so many awesome authors. Kayla Olson and I got connected. Me and Kim Chance got connected, which Kim is a friend that I do not know what I would do without, because she's so encouraging, so amazing, and she's so invested in me as a friend and a writer and in What Lies Above. And just like I am with Keeper, which is coming out next month, and I am so excited for her, but she's just such an awesome friend, and we connected this year. So I've just made so many amazing friends. I also reconnected with Janice Hardy, who, if you all have been following me for a while, you will know that I went to her signing. She was the first signing I ever went to when I was 13, and that really started a lot of my love for writing, just that experience of getting to talk to her and share my first novel and just ask her questions, and her encouraging me. And particularly, as most of y'all know, she wrote to a fellow author in my copy of her book, and at that time I was just writing my first book, and for her to call me a fellow author boosted my confidence in a way that really nothing else could. And I got to reconnect with her this year, and we're friends, and we got to get closer, and that was just so amazing. And you know, having author friends who are both, you know, they might be drafting their first novel or they might be published already, surrounding yourself with a variety of different friends and writers and people in the publishing and literary community, whether they're bloggers, readers, writers, agents, whatever it might be. It's just so awesome to have that well-rounded writing community, and I have found so many amazing people in it this year. And so 2017 definitely stands out to me as the year that I really started taking my platform and my writing super seriously in terms of a career, because before this year I knew I wanted to write, but now I want it to be a career. I want to be published, and I'm ready to give it the time, the dedication, and the perseverance that you have to have as an author. And definitely meeting new people, attending the conference, having my work critiqued and at times rejected over and over and over and over, and having negative feedback, and then taking that in stride, having to deal with the emotions, grow a thicker skin, rewrite the book multiple times, and then have this finished product and send it to my betas and hearing their response. Just the whole process of 2017 with What Lies Above has just been so awesome, and so it definitely stands out as a super amazing year. And that's why I'm sharing so many awesome things that happened, because there were so many awesome things that happened in my writing journey this year. And so yeah, looking back on 2017, it was just such a good year, and I'm so grateful. And looking back on it now, I really realize how much has happened, and that's why I said the good definitely outweighs the bad for 2017. Okay, that is probably super long, and that could be a video all on its own, but now I'm going to briefly talk about some of my most anticipated releases and then some of my most anticipated reads for 2018, because as most of y'all probably know, I'm super behind on reading, and I'm trying to read books that were released like 5 years ago, so I kind of go back and forth. I have quite a few new releases that I'm looking forward to reading, but then I have quite a few old releases that I'm also going to finally finish this upcoming year, at least I plan to, so I'm going to share both of those releases and reads for 2018. Alright, so let's start with the releases. Some of my top releases for 2018 are Kim Chance's Keeper, which I mentioned earlier. She's a really good writing friend, and I cannot wait to not only buy her book and support her as a fellow writer and creator, but also to read Keeper, because I've been hearing about it and encouraging her in her journey for pretty much the entirety of the year. And so for her finally to have this book and be able to put it on my shelf, I watched her walk through a lot of her discouragement and difficulties, because she is very open about that on her channel. and I first found her right after she got her literary agent, and then we became friends, and so I got to watch her get her publishing contract and walk through the difficulties of that, and finally have a cover release and arcs and unboxings and all the things that come with that, and then now to finally be able to put Keeper on my shelf is just such an encouragement for me, because I get to see another author who walks through a lot of the same discouragement and questioning and doubts that I've had, but then I get to have that finished product on my shelf, and I'm going to look at Keeper and I'm going to be like, her perseverance paid off and mine will too. And I think that that's such an encouragement, but also I just cannot wait to read Keeper because it sounds so awesome, and I'm so looking forward to that. So that's probably my #1 release, both for a personal reason and for a reading reason, that is coming out in 2018. I cannot wait. Another release that I'm really looking forward to is Everlist by Sarah Holland. I have wanted this book forever. I have entered every giveaway probably on the internet to try to get an arc of Everlist. So far, everybody wants one, so I haven't got one, but that's okay because I cannot wait to buy a copy and have it and read it. It sounds so cool. The premise is so amazing. The cover is gorgeous. I mean, look at this. I'll put it up here, and I mean, it's so pretty, and I just cannot wait to have it and finally read it. So that is one I'm anticipating. Ash Princess is another one that I cannot wait to read. That one sounds so awesome. The cover kind of looks like Red Queen, but I actually think I like it better than Red Queen. It's kind of dark and mysterious, and that premise sounds really awesome. It's a high fantasy, which is one of my favorite genres to read. Alrighty, and then I'm going to take a little peek at my Goodreads TBR for 2018 releases, because I cannot remember off the top of my head all the books I'm looking forward to. So Keeper, Everlist. Oh, I'm also looking forward to Legendary, which is the second book in the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. I cannot believe that she left us on that cliffhanger at the end of Caraval, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the story continues in Legendary. The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross is also one that I am anticipating, and the cover is super pretty on that one as well. The Diminished by Caitlin Sage Patterson is one that I cannot wait to get my hands on. And then this Splintered Silence by Kayla Olson, I believe is anticipated for the end of 2018. And after reading The Sandcastle Empire, I would read her shopping list if I could. She's such a good writer, has such a beautiful prose and narrative, and she works the plot and characters just incredibly, so I cannot wait for this new book, The Splintered Silence, to hit shelves so that I can read that one as well. For right now, those are my top 7 anticipated releases for 2018. I know that there are a lot of books that are coming out, and I'll probably find out more. That's probably not nearly all of the books that I'm looking forward to, but those are some of my top ones that I cannot wait to read for 2018. Now I get to talk about the books that I want to read this year, which is a lot, as many books as I possibly can, but I have quite a few books on my shelf that I'm going to be trying to read through this year, so I'm going to share a few of those, but again, this will not be all of the books that I'm wanting to read. This will probably just be my top ones, and I'll probably buy a bunch of books this year because I buy books even when I have books that I need to read. So I'm just going to share a few of the ones that I already own that I'm going to try to read and really push myself to read this year. Alrighty, one of the first books on my shelf that I saw that I pulled down for 2018 that I want to finish is Burning Glass by Catherine Purdy, which sounds so good, and it has such a good premise, and I bought this early this year and I really wanted to read it this year, but again, I didn't have that push, that drive, and that discipline to read as much as I should have this year. So 2018 is going to be the year of reading, and I'm going to finish this book. It is planned for the beginning of 2018. I'm planning to read it in the first few months of 2018. So hopefully I'll get this done, and if I can, I actually would really like to read it during my readathon, so hopefully I'll read it in January. Another book that I really want to read this upcoming year, and again I'm hoping to read during my readathon, is Shimmer and Burn by Mary Taranta, and this cover is probably in the running for one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen. It is so gorgeous and it glints in the light, and I just absolutely love it. It's not really that long of a book, so hopefully I can read through it pretty fast in a day or two and get this one done as well. Alrighty, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, hopefully I will have this book done before New Year's if it wins my poll, but I want to read A Legend by Marie Lu. Again, if I read it in the next few days, it will count as a 2017 read, but if not, it will roll over into 2018. So hopefully I will finish this before the 16th and then I can have it done, but I've heard it is such a good book. This is one of those books that was published a long time ago. The whole trilogy is out now, so hopefully I can finish this and get on to finish the rest of the trilogy as well. Alright, now I'm just going to go through and show you guys a few books I want to read in 2018. I'm not going to really talk about them or give a commentary just because I know that this video is going to be super long already, so I'm just going to go through them and name them, show you the cover, and kind of get through a few of them that I want to read in 2018. First is The Choosing by Rochelle Decker, Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wine, and A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. So that is all for the video. Finally, you guys. I'm so excited to look forward to 2018 and to see what this new year brings in both my writing journey and in my reading journey as well. Hopefully, my goal is to find an agent for What Lies Above this year. So we will see how that goes. Fingers crossed for that, and I cannot wait to see what it brings. Thank you guys as always so much for watching. All of my social media links are down below in the description box, as well as those videos that I mentioned if you want to go check them out. And I will see y'all next time. Next Saturday it will be 2018, so I'll see y'all in the new year. Bye!